Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Joseph Benavidez to defeat Dominic Cruz in the rematch. And I'm here to talk about Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Elizau Zaleski dos Santos, who I just call Zaleski. Rinat is 32 years old, 21 and 1 or 21 and 2, depending on who you ask. Sherdog and Tapology. Either way, he's never been finished, and his decision loss or losses come 10 years ago. And since then, obviously undefeated, but he's looked better and better. And at the UFC level, we've seen him in the UFC for 3 fights now. He's looked better and better. Got the best result over Kevin Lee, club and sub. And before that, got a great victory over Brian Battle, who's only gone on to win since then and looked really damn good. And he knocked Brian Battle down in round 3, showcasing that power, but essentially just blanketed him. He took him down repeatedly and smothered him. And that, despite not winning too many fans, maybe, like he did in the Kevin Lee fight, but that is very impressive. Because even though it seems like maybe a lot of fighters do that, I think lay and pray, even if you want to, dismiss it by calling it that, it's not as easy to lay and pray or to smother somebody like he did the Brian Battle. At the UFC level, it's just not as easy these days, but he showed to be way too much just with that one skill set against a guy like Brian Battle. So Rinat's got a lot of upside. Not the best competition outside the UFC, but still, he did what he needed to do and produced finishes. He's got 17 finishes in his 21 wins, and now 2 of his 4 decision wins coming in the UFC. So he's showing he could fight hard for 15 minutes against the best competition. And yeah, just a lot of upside with Rinat Fakhretdinov. He looks better and better with each fight. Zaleski dos Santos, I can't say that really, that he looks better with each fight, because he's definitely been around the block a few times. But he, at 36 years old, I still wouldn't describe him as unhealthy. There's a little cause for concern. He's looked a little less healthy as of late. And he did suffer his most recent loss by knockout. Li Jingliang knocked him out in round 3. Of course, Li Jingliang is the most dangerous striker at welterweight, or one of them anyway. Certainly one of the most powerful. Zaleski, he's lost twice via submission, as my kitten Joffrey will tell you all about. He lost twice via submission, but those were both 10 years ago or so, and they were to former UFC fighters, Viscardi Andrade and Guilherme Vasconcelos. He had a cup of coffee in the UFC. But that's it. He hasn't been finished aside from that Li Jingliang fight since, and he hasn't been submitted any other time. His 4 decision losses, 2 of them come early, 2 of them in the UFC. But of the 4 losses, 3 of them are split. And that includes his UFC losses to Muslim Salikov and Nicholas Dalby way back when. Zaleski, he's got recent wins over Abubakar Nurmagomedov, where I thought he looked really good, taking away the wrestling of Abubakar, even if it was still a close fight. And against Benoit Saint-Denis, I thought, despite all the context that you can use to take away from that performance, he still looked really good. Beat up a really good fighter. Again, despite Benoit Saint-Denis being a lighter guy. And he's going to fight next week, by the way. Can't fucking wait for that. But, yeah, Zaleski, he's a guy that is a Muay Thai fighter. Comfortable, very comfortable on the feet. Not so comfortable on the ground, but yeah, I mean, it's not like he's a slouch there. It's just not where he wants to take the fight. But in this fight here, I think he's going to have no choice. I think Rinat Fakhretdinov, I think Zaleski would beat him by decision if he was able to keep the fight on the feet. I do think he outpoints Rinat, and it's not because Rinat's shown weakness there. It's just that Zaleski's shown more skill. I think he's the better striker, mixes shit up more. He's a capoeira guy, but he's not totally reliant on that, I'd say. But I'm not picking him to keep the fight standing. I'm picking Rinat Fakhretdinov to... I think if anybody was going to get knocked out, I would pick against Zaleski here in this fight, since he's the only guy who's been knocked out, and Rinat's showing that he has some power, some really good pop in his punches, and he's got you thinking about his wrestling no matter what, which gives him a leg up on landing that strike in the first place. But I think he's going to strike his way in, and if everything goes according to plan, he's going to rip Zaleski dos Santos to the mat and rack up more points. And I don't think it'll look totally dominant and totally easy like it was in his first two UFC fights. But I think that will largely be the story of the fight. I think, he's a guy that will mix shit up, but he knows where his bread is buttered and what he needs to do. And I think in this fight, he's going to rip Zaleski to the mat. He's a guy who probably wanted to make a big splash in the UFC, coming into the UFC with all the hype and all these finishes, Rinat Fakhretdinov. And instead, he kind of, he just ground out his first two opponents. And while that didn't win him so many fans, I think it speaks well for him as a fighter, and his intelligence and what, he knows what he needs to do, and he will take the path of least resistance. And I think in one way or another, he finds that path and he cruises to victory. You can get his decision line at plus 200. That is my pick, but it's not my bet. I'm staying away from this one. In fact, if I bet on anything, it'll be Zaleski dos Santos winning this fight, probably by decision. But staying away from it, picking Rinat Fakhretdinov. I think he's got too much for Zaleski. And Zaleski, there's a little more doubt as he gets older and, again, a little more vulnerable, having been knocked out for the first time somewhat recently. So, yeah, that's my pick, Rinat Fakhretdinov. And I'm hoping Zaleski wins, because veterans. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.